All right. What's going on, everybody? What's good? We are here live on the Friday, March 21st, right? And we, trying to do a few things here and there for having more shows and whatnot, or more lives on different days. Not just on Wednesdays or Sundays, but also like see it's something going down on Fridays. We got something coming up for next Friday. That should be something here that y'all can look forward to on the Boxing Source YouTube channel. But also, you'll want to get more guests on, or more whether it's fighters, trainers, managers, promoters, alike, all of that. Want to see if we could get that on here as well. I mean, you've seen what we had on Wednesday with the midweek report. We've had multiple guests join on for the midweek report. That's happened more often. We want to try to work on getting more guests on for the Boxing Source podcast as well. But also, have something on here for y'all, so that we can, have more guests for y'all to join in the live conversations and things like that, for y'all to interact with some of the guests here, be able to send questions through live chat or whatnot, and kind of get more of these fighters or trainers or managers or whatever to connect with the fans. So that's basically why I trying to do more lives here in this particular instance here on this instance. So just waiting for my guests to join in. We had something scheduled for earlier, but we had to push it back here for a little bit here. So just waiting for him to basically get settled in on, so he'll be able to be part of this live. Now, I know we have a lot of action that is coming up for tomorrow. Of course, you have fights in Australia. We have, Pro Box that's going to be in California. We have, of course, the Amazon Prime there in Las Vegas as well. So we had like a little bit of a preview of a number of those fights that was on the midweek report that's on the YouTube channel, currently on the YouTube channel here at this current juncture. All right. So, you'll be able to see that if you go on the YouTube channel here, outside of being part of this particular live. But then also, we're going to see about working on getting more guests on here for the Boxing Source, right? You can also check the website, theboxingsource.net. Of course, you have the series there, Fighting in Photos, where if I'm on site for these fight cards, that's what I do. Pretty much like take photos there, photo highlights of those fights. So you'll be able to see them from multiple fights that I've been in the past. And with the website being recently updated, there's like a number of photos that have been there that I had to basically catch up with. But right now, have our guest in to talk about what's been going down with him over the past month plus and whatnot. Very thankful for him to join with us once again. He's been, very busy over the past month, and just coming off of training here earlier this evening here. And that is our guy, of course, former fighter, now well-known trader, Iceman John Scully in the building. What's going on, Iceman?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Of course, just for me, winding down. I've been at, a number of events over the past 6 weeks. So just chilling around my, home area for now, until some more events come up that I'll be able to cover there. And of course, you're getting back, all settled in from what happened last month. It's pretty much been 4 weeks since you've been over at Saudi Arabia for that event that happened between Beterbiev-Bivol. And, just coming off of that, and like I was mentioning before, you're there, working with your fighters, over in your area there. So how have things been going here over the past couple of weeks?
It's been pretty good. I managed to keep myself busy. I have a lot of things going on, and I'm actually getting ready. I have Stephen Butler, super middleweight now. He's moving up to super middleweight. He's supposed to be fighting Eric Bazinian in Montreal in May. So we're beginning training camp pretty soon for that, which is going to be a big fight in Montreal.
That should be interesting. I don't know if that's going to be like a either Tiger Promotions card or something like
Yeah,
that.
I had a Tiger. Yeah, I
Okay,
had a Tiger.
cool. Yeah, because I know that they've done a number of those events out there in that particular area. So that's going to be something
Right,
there. I know he's coming off of a win back in November over in Montreal. It had a TKO victory there in that one. So now
right.
he's been back on the mid in the win column there because the previous one he went up against Patrice Volney where he
Right.
fell short in that one. And I was actually in Orlando for Volney's following fight there they'd had against Austin Emma Williams in Orlando. So now,
Okay.
with Stephen Butler, he's, trying to get back in the mix here within the super middleweight division.
Right. Yeah. We're he fought that fight at 160, and I noticed, he mentioned a couple times about possibly going to 168. And for the last fight, we had a catch weight. It was like 164. And I noticed he was much more energetic just during the training camp and everything. And after that fight, which he won by knockout, he was saying, I think we should try 168. Like, I feel so much better. I feel so much stronger, not having to lose that weight. And, so far he feels very positive.
Yeah, I mean, he's had, a good amount of fights, a good amount of professional fights, and he's not even like 30 years old there. So, he's able to, make that adjustment to be at a 168 and fight at 168. And, for me, it's more about, how comfortable a fighter is, once they're there at fight night. And, once you get to a point in your professional career where it can get harder and harder to get to a weight that you're, contracted to be at for a specific fight, there's like, you know what? I don't necessarily have the energy that I feel like I should trying to get down to that specific weight. So let me try to see if I could, be at a weight class above and then see how I feel about that. So, here with Stephen Butler, having that fight that he did have here in November, that, like you said, he was feeling very good in that fight against Fernando Farias, that he says, hey, let me go ahead and try this here at 168.
Right, 100%. That's where we're at.
Cool. So yeah, we're looking forward to that. Like you said, it was going to be around in May for that fight card.
It looks like May. They're trying to just firm up the date in May, but it looks like May. Yes.
Gotcha. So you have that there with Stephen Butler, and of course, like I was mentioning there from last month, you had the rematch there with Artur Beterbiev against Dmitrii-Bivol for the undisputed titles there at light heavyweight. Another classic bout between the two. Another close bout between the two. It just it ended up where Bivol got the decision this time around. Now I know we were talking about what happened after the first fight and what you saw there after the first fight. Now here in the second fight, did you see something different in Bivol that I guess made it a little bit more difficult for Beterbiev in that instance?
Right. He fought a good fight over the second half. Dmitrii did, but I'll say this honestly, and you have to understand. I assume most people know this, but most people probably don't know this. When you watch a fight, you're in the corner. You're in the corner and you're on the floor by the ring.
Mm-hmm.
It looks much different than it does watching it on TV.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't necessarily think so. You're watching the same fight, but sometimes it can literally look like two different fights. Like you could
Yeah.
be in the front row at a fight and you watch it, and then you go home and watch the tape. It's like a different fight. It's just the action is different, and me being there live, in the corner, going into the seventh round, I remember thinking that we're winning for sure. Like I thought we were winning for sure, and I thought Bivol actually looked apprehensive. He looked like he didn't want to fight there for a little while. I thought we were going to stop him. Then I believe it was the seventh round. It looked like Artur took his foot off the gas, probably to rest for a round. And I feel like over the second half, Dmitrii came back better and didn't, he like I told Artur after one of the rounds, don't let him back in. we got to keep this lead that we have. Now, when the fight was over and we got in the ring, I thought we were going to get it. I really did. I was kind of surprised initially that we didn't get it. But I have to give credit. Dmitrii fought a good fight over the second half. I thought we did enough before that to get enough rounds, but he did do a good job.
And it was a good point that you made there as far as like the view of these fights, because a number of fight fans, the majority of the fight fans watch it on television. So you'll have like camera one that'll be on one side of the ring. You'll have camera two that's on another side of the ring, and then another overhead camera that'll have a different type of view. But it's different when you're either ringside or, as I mentioned, when you're a judge, because you'll be at like one spot in the ring and you can have another judge that's opposite of you, and then there'll be another judge that'll be either to your left or to your right. And so when you have it like that, it's like you'll see things that maybe other people can't see, but at the same token, you could have like two fighters at one side of the ring or one corner, and then one judge that's on the far side can't see it, but another judge that's on the near side could see what's going on.
For sure.
It gives like different interpretations of what's happening in the fight.
Yeah, that's for sure. Like it could be a thing where the guy with his back to the ropes, he's slipping in uppercuts on the inside, and the judge behind the guy receiving the uppercuts can't see it. So, it depends on the angle for sure.
Yep, most definitely. So you had that on one instance, right? And then, me from a fan's perspective, right? And I'm looking at Beterbiev, in the first half of the fight, like he was getting it. He was getting it in and everything like that, right? But I was also like, throw the left hand, not the left hand, but throw the right hand to the body. Throw the right hand to the body, because I've seen that. He'll throw the left jab. He'll throw it upstairs. He'll throw it downstairs, or he'll throw like a left hook to the body and things like that. But I didn't necessarily see that many right hooks to the body. And from the first fight, and we had a conversation about it, that in the first fight, in the middle rounds, you've seen Bivol have like a high guard, but go on the ropes with his back to the ropes, and then move to his left or Beterbiev's right. So I would be like, okay, if he keeps moving to my right, I want to throw that right hook to send him a message. If he thinks about moving that way, that a right hook is coming that way. So we would have to like make an adjustment. And I thought here in the rematch, I didn't necessarily see that in the middle rounds, because as you said, Beterbiev was really getting to him, particularly in like those rounds 4 and 5. And for me, I just didn't see that many right hooks to the body there, and I thought that was key, particularly when it went into the second half of the fight.
Right. Yeah. So many things happen. It's just like hindsight is 2020, of course. And that's why we come back and we try and adjust and we do things better next time. And I'm just hopeful that they give us the chance for the rematch. I think most people would be wanting to see a trilogy.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that. I want to see a trilogy. A number of fight fans do want to see a trilogy, and then there's some that don't. They're looking at maybe you could have Bivol versus Benavidez. They're bringing that up. But for me on that side, it's more of like, from a business perspective, I don't think that fight necessarily gets as much money as a third fight between Beterbiev and Bivol does at this point. And also, Benavidez said, like, if they want to go ahead and have the third fight, he wouldn't mind having that happen. So I would like to see a third fight. I want to see what Beterbiev does to make the adjustments here for the third fight, and if he has to have it to the point where he has a quick turnaround, so to speak. We got to see how that goes as well. Because, for me, it was, you have a fight in October. Now you turn around, you have a fight in February. Let's see what they have worked out. Let's see when this next fight is going to take place, because I felt like that was key for Beterbiev to get back in the ring, there, instead of like having it be like once a year or wait, 8 months or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I prefer, any fighter. I prefer that they stay a little bit more active, more fights per year, and quicker turnaround. Today, it's a different world today. Like, I remember guys like Marlon Starling as contenders in the '80s. He was fighting 5 and 6 times. Nobody does that today. No champions or top contenders would
Mm-hmm.
dare fight 6 times in a year.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a different world.
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the only one that I can remember off the top, like that's doing that now, as far as like a contender or up and coming, is Abdullah Mason. Like he had 5 fights last year, but you don't see, like you said there, Merlin Sterling, or when Mike Tyson was like fighting almost twice a month or something like that. You don't really see that anymore these days,
Right.
particularly if a
No,
fighter is to a
there's
specific company.
not as many shows. Yeah, it's unfortunate because there's not as many shows as there were. Like when I turned pro in my first year, no, excuse me, my first 9 months of being a pro, I was able to fight 13 times in 9 months
Mm,
because there were shows in all over New England and New York and Atlantic City and New Hampshire and New Jersey and New York. And now, there I fought in Hartford probably in my first 2 years. I probably fought in Hartford like 7 times. There hasn't been a show in Hartford in probably over 10 or 15 years. It's just a different
mm.
world today.
Yeah, it's something where a lot of these locations that did have fights or fight cards don't necessarily have it anymore. So if you have, for example, fighters that you work with in your area, like they would have to, like, say, if they would have to wait for something that might happen in Boston, or go to New York, or like not just New York City, but you know maybe at the Mohegan Sun over in Connecticut too, or out there by the International Boxing Hall of Fame, or Minnesota or something like that, over like in Verona, New York, to have those opportunities to have those fights. And so with that being said, it's like, okay, I have to wait 6 months, 8 months, maybe a year until I'm able to have another fight.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I don't know what could be done, but fight. It can't force people to go to fights and support it. I think it's a funny thing. Like these guys are making huge money and $100 million purses and everything, but by the same token, I don't think boxing is as popular as it was. The big fights are popular, but
Mhm,
in terms of grassroots, attention and being able to do local shows, Vinny
mhm,
Pazienza, he wasn't even champion before he won the title. He fought in Providence, Rhode Island, his hometown, back around 1985, I think it was. And there were 16,000 people there in a blizzard. It was a blizzard, and they still came out to watch the fight. You will never see that again. Never. In a local city, just a regular. This is in Providence, Rhode Island, the smallest state in the country. You are never going to see that again. 16,000 people for a non-title fight. No way.
mhm.
Not in a blizzard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you mentioned there with Pazienza, like he had a number of fights, over at Foxwoods. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, for
that
sure.
used to be, one of the more established venues out there in Connecticut. And now it's like, if someone talks about that venue, you don't even know like how many events they have over there, if any.
They haven't had a fight in Foxwoods in quite a while, but that's where I fought Michael Nunn was at Foxwoods. So I know Foxwoods very well, but yeah, they haven't had a show there in quite a while.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like if you don't have the promoters that's around that area or close to that area that could say, hey, you know what, we could come up with an event here. If you have these fighters that are in this area, set up something, matchmakers, get some opponents there to have a fight card, and bring fight fans out to those to those events, then you can't necessarily have it to the point where you have those that start out and then eventually become contenders and then eventually fight for world titles or regional titles or something like that.
Yeah, it's just different. The game is set up differently today. I think, like I say, people are used to seeing fights, on the zone, and they don't have to leave their house. And I don't think they're promoting young fighters. You very rarely see any more where there's a young fighter who's really, really popular in his hometown, the way they used to do that. You could, you had Boom Boom Mancini, you had Vinny Pazienza, you had
Hmm.
guys Gary Arroyo, and just different people were hot in their hometown. Virgil Hill in North Dakota, and
Hmm.
I don't know anyone. I mean, if you remember, even Floyd Mayweather fought a fight in his hometown of Grand Rapids, Michigan, and they didn't draw. I don't even think it was a sellout. This is Floyd Mayweather, so
Hmm.
local crowds are not there supporting. Like, I feel like in Hartford we have a few fighters in Hartford who are good fighters, up and coming, but they can't even do a show in Hartford because they wouldn't be able to draw enough people to make any kind of money. So boxing in Hartford used to be a hot sport, but it's not anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned there with Floyd Mayweather, he like defended a world title in his hometown of Grand Rapids, Michigan, against what, Carlos Hernandez there,
Uh,
and you rarely get something like that. But it's about like you talk about, starting off with the grassroots. If you have a fighter that's starting out, and like say he can say, what, hey, I'm here starting off my pro career, reaching out to the people within his neighborhood, within his region or city, and say, hey, what, this is when I'm having my first fight. Let's see if you come out to support. That's how you kind of start off your career, but more and more it seems to be more difficult for these fighters to do that in order to generate that homegrown crowd, so that once they do get to a higher level, and say for example they're trying to get into some of these fights to get up there in the contendership spots, then that'll make promoters be more enticed to bring them on.
right.
Because a fighter
Exactly.
could be 10-0, 13-0, 15-0, but not necessarily have the following in order to make that next step up and say, hey, you know what? It would be profitable for me as a promoter to have this guy on and to put this guy in a fight. But that's one of the issues that they have in boxing at this point.
Yeah, it's a different world now for sure.
Yep, yep. And like I was talking about there with like promoters on one sense, and you said like something there with managers. You had something, a recent post where you talking about managers and how they're able to take a significant chunk of a purse, a fighter's purse, but then at the same token, they ain't giving you much of a return on that. A lot of them take that like that 33% or 30%. There's like instances where promoters could take up to 30% of a fighter's purse, depending on what the fight is. And at the same token, they aren't doing anything to kind of like maximize your value as a fighter. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it's crazy.
Yeah. It's the boxing business is a unique business, and that's why I never really got involved with the business end of things because it's just it's too much for me.
Yeah, gotcha. Now you talk about your involvement there in the game, in the sport, and as a trader there, you mentioned of course being involved there with Artur Beterbiev and with Stephen Butler, but you also said that you been working with a lot of young fighters there in your area. So how is it with that particular program being out there where you're at?
Well, we have a gym. I actually just left a little while ago. Called it. It's called COBA. It stands for Charter Oak Boxing Academy. It's in Hartford, Connecticut, and we have like, on a if everybody came in the gym on the same day, all the kids would be like 60 kids, 65 kids. A
Mm,
really busy program, and we're trying to keep the kids off the street. I had Lawrence Claybay, 1996 Olympian. I had him come to the gym today. just a couple hours ago, and he was talking to the kids and giving them some advice and that type of thing. Took pictures, trying to keep the kids motivated, keep them off the streets, and
Mhm.
feels good. We've got a good program. I think we're doing a service for the community.
Yeah, that's one thing that I would think that fans don't necessarily understand is that having these gyms is pretty much uh, a beneficial part of the community, getting those kids off the streets, getting them to have something to do, have an activity to do after school or whatever it is, because of course we know what happens outside of outside the home, outside of school and things like that. So this is providing another option for these young children there to do something, another extracurricular activity, whether it's boxing, basketball, football, that type of thing. But boxing has really been a huge asset for the community, regardless of where it is, because of where it comes from. As they say, sometimes they say it's like a quote unquote poor person sport, basically there. So it kind of like gives them an option to not necessarily deal with maybe like some of the struggles that they have outside of going to school or being at home or something like that.
Right? Yeah, you're right, 100%, 100%.
Yep. Yep. Now, as you said, you've been there, of course, working with a lot of fighters over the years and things like that. And also, going through your social media there, you talk about, the multiple times and multiple moments over there within your, professional career or within the sport of boxing. And you make, you have these posts here that show the history of the sport there. Like, kind of like go over a number of those things that you've been doing, because I know I've seen like over the past week you've been like showing pictures of multiple moments back in the days, whether it's from 5 years ago or 15 years ago or maybe even 40 years ago.
Right. Yeah, I like to remind people, of great fighters and great moments and that type of thing. And there was everybody knows Ali Frazier, and they know Floyd, and they know all these things. But there's a lot of good fighters and a lot of great fights that I think go under the radar. And so I try to shine a light on some of the ones that people may not be familiar with. For
Yeah,
sure.
and you have those multiple posts on there. You talk about like say for example, Skipper Kelp, or Thomas Tate, you know what I
Right.
mean, or like a Kenny Ellis or Michael Collins, you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
those are the things that not necessarily many fight fans will know about that have happened over the years that you've been around over the years. There, not
Well,
necessarily
you
as
know what's
a trainer,
funny?
but also a
What's
fighter.
funny? You mentioned Skipper, right? Now I
Hmm.
would think, especially now, a lot of fight fans wouldn't know Skipper Kelp, right? Yet
Hmm.
I could say Skipper had one of the best left hooks I've ever seen. Right up there with anybody you can name that has a good left hook. Skipper had just as good or better than they did. You know, and he was a very good amateur. He's a solid pro. He wasn't world champion, and he didn't fight on the biggest stages. So I think a lot of people probably wouldn't know him. But I like to give guys like him credit because Skipper could really fight and he could really punch with the left hook.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I want to see if I could pull up something here from one of the pictures you had, because you had like a number of legendary fighters on it. So let me see if I could pull it up right here. It should be on here, and this is there with you with Aaron Pryor smoking Joe Frazier on there, and Marvis Frazier and Ernie Shaver. So definitely a whole series of legends there on that front. I mean, and that was like, as I say, back in 2001.
Right. Yeah, that was in Oklahoma.
Yep, yep. Say there, Tulsa, Oklahoma. So it's like a number of times there. You have those moments with a number of fighters, over the years, and a lot of times it's like people don't necessarily, like I said, have those type of memories there with a lot of legendary fighters over the years.
Right. Yeah. I've been lucky in a lot of ways, and I earned a lot of it. But I've been it's surreal in a way. I've been able to be around these guys that I grew up watching. I've become friends with guys I watched as a kid. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like I give an example. The night of my first fight ever, a first amateur fight when I was 15, I watched Tim Witherspoon fight Larry Holmes. It was May 20th, 1983. I watched the fight, and then we left after it was over to go to my fight, my first fight ever.
Hmm.
And now, 40 years later, Tim Witherspoon is one of my best friends in the game. Like I talk to him on the phone, we text each other, we hang out. Sometimes I see him at fights and different events, and we hang out. And it's just crazy. Like if you would have told me May 20th, 1983, after I watched him fight Larry Holmes and went to my own fight, my first fight, and you said one day you and this guy are going to be friends and you're going to be texting each other, and I wouldn't have. How could I believe that? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But that's happened to me many times, and so I consider myself really lucky. I earned a lot of it, but luck it was a part of it. It just the stars aligned, and I made a life in boxing, and I'm able to see these guys up close that I admired and I respected, and I get to hang out with them and talk to them and become friends with them, and I consider that one of the best parts of my career in the game.
Yeah, it's part of being part of the boxing family, so to speak. There, once you step in the ring, you become a part of a boxing family because it's like y'all all share that bond about like saying, hey, we share, going through the gyms, going through training, going through these fights, making weight, you know, lacing up the gloves, going through calisthenics, all that type of stuff. So y'all share that bond. It's basically like a brotherhood in that sense.
So,
It's like how they have with sometimes with basketball players or football players or baseball players. Like all of them know like what they had to do in order to get to that point where they're at, whether it's there in high school, college, or pros. So they pretty much like share that same type of thing there with that.
yes,
You
sir.
know,
100%.
yeah. You talk about being there, amongst, people that you looked up to, in a sense. I mean, that kind of like, reminds me about, how I started in the game here as far as like covering the sport of boxing, but, eventually, meeting or seeing folks that I looked up to in the boxing game, like a Larry Holmes or Riddick Bowe or, like a Iron Barkley or Roberto Duran, those type of fighters there that came up in the game there, whether it's 70s, 80s, or 90s, and being able to see them and talk with them about how they've gone through their professional careers and what they're doing now.
Right. No, I understand completely. Believe me.
Hmm. Hmm. Now, one thing that we talked about in our previous conversations is like you said, the game of boxing. There's the sport of boxing, and then there's the business of boxing. And the business of boxing is pretty much like the thing that kind of like turns off a lot of people when it comes to the sport of boxing. Now, you mentioned there in our earlier conversation reference to like belts and how they kind of like have minor titles and regional titles and USA titles and things like that, right? One of the topics that has come up is like this creation of another boxing league, TKO boxing league, where at least one of the things that they're proposing is to just have one belt, almost similar to UFC having one champion in the division, so to speak. Do you think like the sport need would kind of be improved if they had something like that where it's just like I said, one division, one title, that's it.
Well, the thing is, see now guys only fight once or twice a year, right? So if you
Mm-hmm.
only have one champion, the problem is they're gonna fight once or twice a year, and to be a contender, you're gonna have to wait. You might have to wait 6 years just to get a chance to fight for a championship because the guy's not fighting. I mean, if they're gonna fight regularly, I can see it, but Muhammad Ali was fighting 4 and 5 times a year defending the title.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if they, what I would like, and I remember when it was like this, when they just had the WBA and the WBC.
Mhm.
Two, and then they would have unification fights, which are huge. Leonard and Hearns, the first one in '81. I would go more with something like that. Uh, but everybody, they always talk about these amazing things they're going to do with the boxing game, uh, but I don't know how realistic it is. But I'm definitely. I think the problem with the one champion is fighting twice a year. If you're the number 8 contender, you're going to have to wait quite a while to fight and for a championship, and I just don't think that's right either.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe they could come up with I don't know, like some type of tournament, that happens, during the year where a number of these fighters, fight each other, but outside of the tournament, either you would have the champion make a couple of, as they say, voluntary defenses, or you could have the champion be involved in the tournament in some way that, either they enter in at like the semifinals or the quarterfinals or something where, hey, if they win, they defend the belt. If they lose, then they lose the belt, and then the winner would be the new champion, and then move forward on to the tournament or something like that. But it makes for always an interesting scenario for boxing in general, because as you said, a number of these fighters and champions aren't necessarily that active there as it is while being a champion. We
Yeah,
have some cases where like a champion has only fought, like as you said, once a year, and they're still able to keep the belt or something like that. So it
right.
makes for a crazy situation on that front.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. We need more activity. That's for sure.
Yeah, gotcha. Now in the current boxing scene, we had as I was mentioning there with the Tokyo Boxing League. I know they have their Turkey Al Sheikh that's involved with it, Dana White that's involved with it, and they kind of like come up with a few ideas, not just within the boxing league, but boxing in general. So when it comes to them, they may potentially have that boxing league debut here in a few months, as you could have them be involved with the Canelo Alvarez versus Terrence Crawford bout that's been talked about multiple times over that will happen in September. What do you feel about like having those type of big events, and do you think that that could be consistent, whether it's TKO boxing or who we currently have out there right now?
Honestly, I haven't really kept up. I don't really keep up with the business of boxing aspect of it. And
Mm-hmm.
even these things, I really haven't read that much about it. And actually, the only thing I did say, I saw a headline, I think this morning, saying that Canelo and Crawford was off. I don't know if that's true. I saw on Twitter somebody was saying the fight is off.
Well,
Uh,
they said it ain't necessarily official yet. Yeah,
right. Yeah.
it just because you still have Canelo that has his fight coming up on what is it, May 3rd against William Skull. So you have
Okay.
that fight first, and then afterwards, then maybe we'll see about what works out with Canelo and Crawford. But
Right.
Canelo still has his dealers that he has coming up on May 3rd.
Right. So yeah. Like I said, I don't keep up on the logistics of the business too much. So I really couldn't even comment on that too much. Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Quick shout out to my guy Jay Paolo in the building here on the live chat, saying hello to the Iceman, and salute to you, brother Jay, for joining in. Now, we've had a lot of action, like I said, with the Riyadh card that happened on February 22nd. You had what was it, Joseph Parker in there that was able to defend what is the interim title or something like that. Of course, the main event, you had Shakur Stevenson be part of it. You had Callum Smith there getting the win on that one too. So when you talk about the light heavyweight division, like it was mentioned there with Beterbiev-Bivol and Beterbiev, you also have Callum Smith that's out there that had a big win as part of that fight card. So was there any thoughts on that particular fight if you were able to catch it?
Yeah, it was a very entertaining fight. It was really really interesting. He fought a good fight. He fought much better against Boazzi than I thought he was going to. And
Mm-hmm.
I actually saw him like 4 o'clock in the morning in the hotel lobby. And I talked to him, said good fight and everything. And then Boazzi came in and they actually interacted right in the middle of the lobby and they took pictures together and they hugged it out. And it was pretty cool to see, and that was a big win for Callum. I was happy for him.
Yeah, definitely a big win for him. In that bout against Bawasi, we was able to hand Bawasi his first loss. He of course had been campaigning there as a former world champion there at super middleweight, went up to light heavyweight, of course. Had the bout against Beterbiev there last year. So he was trying to get back in the mix there at 175, and he's kind of like proposed as a potential opponent for Beterbiev, as I was mentioning there earlier. So you do have some good matchups that could be made there at 175 pounds. While we could see if we could work closer towards a third fight between Beterbiev and Dmitrii-Bivol. You also had the Adamas Shiraz fight. Virgil Ortiz getting a decision win over My Dream Off. Was there like any other thing that stood out to you in that fight card?
Not really, because I was in the dressing room with Artur, so I really didn't get to catch other than Boazzi. I wasn't able to really catch anything.
You gotcha. Now, with the two fights that Beterbiev had there in Saudi Arabia, for me, it's more about, having the adjustment to get to be over there, in Riyadh, right? And the thing is, for a lot of those events, the timing of those events is like late in the evening, like around like 11 p.m. local time to around like 2 a.m. local time around there. And that, kind of like makes it, at least for me, it looks like it makes it difficult, for a lot of these fighters to kind of like make that adjustment because first you have to make the time adjustment getting over to Saudi Arabia and then doing it again because you got to prepare for fighting at the time that you do out there. So that's a whole different animal with that.
Yeah, yeah. The guys, they figure it out. We adjusted pretty easily. Uh, it wasn't as hard as I think people might think, but it's definitely something that needs to be done for sure.
Yeah, as far as like them trying to maximize the viewership, you know, not just they're in the particular arena, but in different parts of the world, they try to maximize the viewership, live viewership for these fight cards. So they got to figure out a particular time to actually host those events. So I guess once they try to nail that down, then they'll be able to, I guess, have a little bit more success on those events there. Now, one question here. What would you say is a couple of things within the sport today that needs a little bit of improvement? We talked about something there where you have these fighters that start off not necessarily getting the community support before stepping in the ring, so that if there's like a fight that's coming up, that they could have 50, 60, 70 people that say, hey, you know what, we're behind this guy, we're behind this woman here having their fight at this particular arena, whether it's in the area or if it's somewhere else. So what would be another thing that you would kind of like say needs a little bit of improvement here in the sport?
Um, I think the sanctioning bodies need to stop all the just the insanity that they're doing with the interim titles and they have an interim champion in the same weight class that there's an actual champion. You have a
Mm-hmm.
WBC champion and you also have a WBC interim champion in the same weight class, which makes no sense. It shouldn't even be possible. It shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
even be possible. It's not possible to have an interim champion when you have the regular champion already there. It makes no
Mm-hmm.
sense. But they do it and nobody says anything. And it's horrible.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned there, WBC has interim champions. The WBO has interim champions, while at the same time they have active world champions. So it really doesn't make sense on that front for them to have an interim champion even in the sense of, like, say for example, they're in the heavyweight division, right? They it took all that time for them to finally have an undisputed heavyweight championship fight last year, right? So in that sense, okay, if you want to have something where I guess you would see if you have an interim championship, but at the same time, it's like, what's the difference between having an interim champion and as they have a mandatory challenger? Really, there is not much of a difference, with the exception of, I guess, a top contender would have some type of belt, basically. You know what I mean?
Right.
But at
Yeah,
the
it's
end of
still,
the day, it's still sanctioning fees that the fighter will have to pay those sanctioning bodies in order to become an interim champion. So it's crazy on that front. And even with that, there have been efforts to try to consolidate those titles. And what happened? They still end up having these interim champions, regular world champions, and all that type of stuff. So that's funny, how they would say that they're trying to consolidate these titles, but at the same time have interim champions and all of that. Jay Pylon here says or asks, what is your favorite fight venue? He knows that you're over there in the New England area, Massachusetts and Connecticut, and that type of stuff.
my favorite fight. What?
Venue or arena,
Oh, uh, my favorite venue, like not just in New England, but ever. Like
ever? Yeah.
I would say probably the Blue Horizon in Philadelphia.
Mm.
I think the Blue Horizon was really something else. It was like historic place, but the dressing room was really small, and it had graffiti on the walls, and it was like a hood building. Like you
Mhm.
felt like you were fighting. You felt like, if you remember the first scene in Rocky, the very first Rocky, when Rocky was
Mhm.
fighting Spider Rico in an old church, and it was just local people fighting, in the audience. It felt like
Mhm.
that. Like you were fighting in the neighborhood, and you were fighting in front of blue collar people, and just in this old hall, nothing glamorous about it at all, like nothing. And it was real fights, man. Blue Horizon fan, every fan there knew boxing really well, and I think every fighter should have had the opportunity at least once to fight at the Blue Horizon.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be something there. Like I said, you said that was one venue there that stood out there, particularly in Philadelphia. Of course, it has a rich history in the sport of boxing. I mean, nowadays, I kind of like have maybe the 2300 arena or something like that there in Philadelphia could be similar to like a Blue Horizon there, from back in the days or something like that. But
Right.
there should be like those type of venues that say have that type of, as they say, nostalgic feeling of boxing. So maybe having those 2300s or something like that to kind of like say, hey, these are venues that could kind of build those local or regional crowds, so that if you have a fighter that stands out that has fought these venues multiple times, once they get to that next level, they have that following that says, hey, we got a number of supporters here that support us fight for a top contendership spot, or a final eliminator or something like that before fight for a world title.
Yes, sir. But that's a good plan.
Yep. Yep, no doubt, no doubt. So I mean that's mostly what I had here in this particular conversation. Of course, very thankful as always for you to join us here. And like you said, I mean people can follow you on social media, whether it's Facebook or Instagram. Just look up Iceman John Scully, and you'll be able to see everything that he does, that he's been doing here. As far as like contributing to the sport of boxing here. Over the years and things like that. Is there anything else that you want the people to know here?
I encourage people to follow me on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. I have two Facebook pages. I have some good boxing conversations. We have some good people on there. I think people enjoy my conversations and topics. And if you're not following me yet, I would appreciate it if you did. I think you'd enjoy it.
Gotcha. No doubt. Like I said, he has two Facebook accounts there. Not just one, but two of them
Right. It's
there for the.
Iceman John Scully and John the Iceman Scully.
Gotcha. So y'all be sure to follow Iceman John Scully on social media, and of course, when things happen here within the sport of boxing that he's involved in, you'll be able to check him out and things like that. Like you said, we're seeing here if he's going to be in the corner of Stephen Butler for Butler's next fight that could be scheduled for May. Here, we got to see how that goes. His with Iron the Tiger Promotions, of course, have it. That big follower there over in Canada, they could have another big event out there later on down the line. I'll be on the lookout for that too, because I think they're going to have a few more key fighters pretty much in that particular division that could be part of that card as well. So I'll keep my eye out for that and see what happens if anything materializes from that as well. But big thanks here, of course, for Iceman John Scully to join us here on the Boxing Source YouTube channel. Y'all be sure to share this live stream or whatever it is, so that people are able to check this interview out. And if you haven't done so already, you can hit the like button here for this particular video and also subscribe to the Boxing Source if you haven't done so already. We bring as much boxing content for you as possible, and like I said, provide the fighters, trainers, managers, promoters, all that stuff for the people, so that y'all be able to see what they're talking about here, whatever happens within the sport of boxing. So that's what we do here at the Boxing Source. And until next time, folks, I thank y'all for joining in. Till next time, I'll catch y'all later. Peace out.